Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Bowen. Welcome to our webinar. As it says on the screen right there, I am the Academic Market Specialist at LTI. We are the exclusive licensee of ACTFL assessments. I am joined today by Mary Jo Adams, who is the World Language Department Chair at Providence Day School down in sunny Charlotte, North Carolina, I should say today. She is also the past president of the FLANC, the Foreign Language Association of North Carolina. Mary Jo? Would you care to say hi real quick?
Yes, hello from steaming hot Charlotte, North Carolina. Welcome everyone who's joining. I was just saying to Andrew how wonderful it is that at the end of the school year, we're tired, exhausted, exams are upon us or just behind us to come and learn and share. So I'm humbled and honored to be part of this webinar.
Absolutely, and I am humbled and honored as well. As a former language educator myself, it is truly a pleasure to share all that I've learned about the Seal of Biliteracy, and of course, introduce you to Mary Jo Adams and a guest speaker who will be coming on a little bit later, but I won't ruin the surprise quite yet. Anyway, the title of our webinar today is the Seal of Biliteracy and its implementation in both public and private schools. You'll see over on the right side of the screen, we have quite a few examples of the seals of biliteracy. One of the fantastic things about the Seal of Biliteracy is it is not just one blanket seal that covers everybody. There's no governing body, so to speak, nationally. It is up to each state, and then even up to each district. You'll see those smaller seals towards the middle of the screen. Those are actually district seals that have been created by specific districts across the nation. And then Mary Jo Adams today will be speaking about what we see over on the left, which is a seal from a specific school, a specific program, which is Providence Day School. We will be giving a quick overview about what the Seal of Biliteracy is. We will, of course, talk about the impact that it has had so far. We will talk about what you, as world language educators, can do to make sure to promote, to advocate for this wonderful seal that is sweeping the nation. And of course, we will talk about a couple of different scenarios, kind of case studies, so to speak, in which the Seal of Biliteracy has had a huge impact on one district and one school. Over on the left, we see a few examples of students who have very proudly earned their Seals of Biliteracy. And I will go ahead and point out sealofbiliteracy.org below. By no means am I affiliated with sealofbiliteracy.org, nor is Mary Jo. We are here simply sharing our knowledge and sharing our experience as far as the Seal of Biliteracy goes, because once again, sealofbiliteracy.org is a nonprofit. It is something that is truly built to better and move forward world language education and world language educators as we advocate for our field. Big question here. So what does it mean to be biliterate? We hear bilingual all the time, right? We hear multilingual. So what is this Seal of Biliteracy, and why was the word biliteracy chosen? Well, let's take a quick look at the definition on the screen there. While bilingualism means the ability to not fluently, but proficiently speak in two languages, biliteracy denotes an individual's ability to fluently speak, read, listen, and write proficiently in two languages. We will talk about several different ways in which students can earn the Seal of Biliteracy. And of course, the vast majority of those methods will include all four of those skills: speaking, listening, reading, and writing, and of course, looking at the ACTFL standards, all three modes of communication: interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational.
So we took a little license to cross out the word fluently. We now say proficient, and why? Why have we, what's the difference? Parents ask, some administrators ask the difference. We used to always say, I'm fluent in a foreign language. And the difference is that proficiency can be measured. And we now know that this ability to measure a student's, a teacher's, anyone's proficiency is important to employers, is important to universities, and they're paying attention to this proficiency and this measurement because they're paying attention to the seal of biliteracy, and that's really exciting. You know, biliteracy starts with us as educators. One of the things that I notice on resumes that I'm looking at, that world language educators at times are still writing it, they are fluent in their language. So my call is, language teachers, let's not write fluent, let's write proficient, and let's let on our resumes everyone know where we fall within our proficiency scale and be measured.
Yeah, great. And you'll see on the right side of the screen, there's a little question bubble, and we'll be seeing those on several of the slides that we come across. At the end, however, we will be answering questions of yours, questions from the audience. So if something comes up, please go ahead and write in the chat box, in the little question box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will go ahead and address those later after the presentation. So what are the benefits of the Seal of Biliteracy? A lot of this content, as well as other content that we'll be seeing later today, does come directly from the sealofbiliteracy.org site. I will go ahead and quickly read through this list while highlighting some of the words in bold here. So first and foremost, what does the Seal of Biliteracy do for our students? Well, it recognizes the value of language learning, both inside and outside of the classroom. So of course, we'll be speaking about, you know, the students who are in our world languages programs, who are learning a second language, perhaps a third language. We will also be talking about heritage speakers of languages other than English. We will be discussing, you know, how those students, in addition to and equally as the world languages students do, can earn the Seal of Biliteracy as they should for themselves. It also encourages students to attain high proficiency levels. Everybody on this call is very familiar with that student who just wants to fulfill requirements for a language program and be done with it. We as language educators are igniting that fire, not only igniting it, but fueling that fire so that students can reach those higher proficiency levels. The Seal of Biliteracy allows us to essentially set a goal. Where do we want to get in our proficiency in our program? Intermediate, mid? Okay, that's our goal for senior year. Now, what kind of scaffolding can we build in order to make sure that our students are going to get there by their 5th, 6th year of language study? Affirm native or heritage speakers. We'll be talking about the vast variety of languages in which the Seal of Biliteracy is being earned throughout the nation, which is truly, it gives me goosebumps every time I talk about it. Also providing employers and colleges and universities with a method of identifying and recognizing exactly how proficient a student is, or a former student in the case of an employer, once that student comes to that HR representative or whoever it may be. Gone are the days where we can write on a resume, yeah, I can speak some Arabic and be able to, you know, join one of those 3-letter agencies in the US federal government. It is extremely valuable for the students to have a seal, to have a certificate that shows exactly how well they not only speak, but of course, read, write, and listen in that particular language. We are also, as language educators, preparing students for a global society, right? Whether they are staying here in the United States or they are going abroad, we are providing them with those 21st century skills that are necessary to operate in a global society like that. Not only do they have those skills, but they have something that actually shows that they have those skills. And of course, along those lines, we're looking at cross-cultural communication. We are affirming the value of diversity, and we are honoring the multiple cultures and languages in our communities. How widely is the Seal of Biliteracy recognized? Well, here we see a recently updated map that again comes directly from sealofbiliteracy.org. All of the states you see in dark blue are the states in which legislation has been passed for a seal of biliteracy. Does that mean that the states that are not highlighted in dark blue do not have seals of biliteracy being issued? Nope, absolutely not. On this map, we are simply looking at the state level. And again, looking at a state like North Carolina, we are looking at the state level, looking at districts throughout the public schools. We also have the private schools, the charter schools, the independent schools that are recognizing the seal of biliteracy and offering this seal of biliteracy from sealofbiliteracy.org to their students. Now, a quick question for Mary Jo. What momentum have we seen outside of the world languages and ELL world as far as the seal of biliteracy goes?
So I really do think that it is a really exciting time to be a world language teacher, because thanks to so much advocacy and awareness that now is on a national level. ACFL, we had the American Academy of Arts and Sciences that did a wide investigation and published a paper called America's Languages, Investing in Language Education for the Century. If you go to the next slide, Andrew, that there's a real sense of urgency as a country to prepare our students for linguistic and cultural competence. Out of the paper from the American Academy of Arts and Science, you see effective communication is the basis of international cooperation, and a strong national defense depends on our ability to understand our adversaries as well as our friends. This is a statement as world language educators we've been saying for decades. But now that these conversations not only are taking place at a state and federal level, but there is actually action, such as legislation, which is a seal of biliteracy. It's very, very exciting to see. I really recommend that the Lead with Languages. I'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide, and what US employers are saying about the critical need of hiring employees that are multilingual. The Washington Post. I'm from Charlotte, and I think that if you look in any states with a seal of biliteracy, there's a lot of publications on the state adopting a seal of biliteracy. But the Washington Post every year seems to be writing big articles about how important the seal of biliteracy is, and just recently in April talked about half the world is bilingual. What's our problem? And I think that these articles, as we are trying to advocate ourselves, provide a voice of authority bigger than just our voice within our classrooms or our administration as to the importance of world language classes within our schools. The seal of biliteracy was highlighted this year, if some of you read Ed Week, as one of the 10 big ideas, right? And these 10 big ideas were the 10 big things that can really shift the K-12 experience and conversation. When we're looking at education in the United States, world language is front and center. So there's just so much exciting partnerships that are there with stakeholders that go outside of our walls. And these are things that we need to continue the momentum as well to advocate and work with our own lobbying group. If you're not familiar with it, the Joint National Committee for Languages, the JNCL, and continue this sense of urgency. But all of these voices and this momentum is around the seal of biliteracy, and that's what's super, super exciting for all of us, I think. One of the Washington Post articles quoted a student saying, I'm so proud. It took me 7 years. I worked hard. So it really is moving from the extrinsic rewards of grades and GPA to the extrinsic reward of you know, long-term commitment, the 10 years, 10,000, you know, hours. We are producing kids that have high levels of proficiency. I think that's it for this slide. So again, what research supports, so the slide that you see now comes from this Lead with Languages. Lead with Languages is a national campaign that is sort of powered by ACTFL, aimed at making language learning a national priority. And just those statistics are absolutely staggering. They commissioned this report to reflect the needs of U.S. companies, large, mid-size, and small, for multilingual employees. And when you see that, you can understand that U.S. employers just no longer can rely on the English abilities of suppliers, manufacturers, that we need this partnership, and the bridge is learning more languages than just thinking that everybody speaks English. I think that reading this report provides all of us with some great advocacy materials as we're looking to advocate for the Seal of Biliteracy in our own schools and districts. Again, I feel the voice of authority to have this research and these statistics does some very, very powerful convincing. So this slide, I'll continue talking, comes from the Seal of Biliteracy.org. When we at Providence Day wanted to establish a Seal of Biliteracy as chair of a department, I mean, there was hesitation. I thought, well, okay, I'm not a public school. I'm watching state after state legislate and provide this designation for heritage speakers, for students in language programs. But I'm just an independent school, and just so all of you know, I come from my comments come from being a chair of a world language department. We are a pre-K, we call it TK through 12 school. We do start language learning from the youngest of ages, French, Spanish, and Chinese in the lower school, and then we add German and Latin in the middle school, and all of those languages go to AP. So we do have quite a opportunity for a long tarmac, if you will, to take off and start this path. But if you are listening and you're an independent school or you're a charter school, you should not hesitate. There's no reason to think about what the Seal of Biliteracy means from your school. And so going on to sealofbiliteracy.org and seeing very clearly that it's an award given by a school, a district, or a state, right? An individual school site certainly can award this seal. And that's what makes it really exciting when I was guided by the Seal of Biliteracy.org, empowering me for the greater good. Yes, have a seal. Make sure you're informed of the criteria and the integrity of that seal. But on the next slide, Andrew will talk a little bit about the pathways to that seal.
Okay. As Mary Jo mentioned, there has been a bit of misinformation out there, unfortunately. So what is being released coming this fall is essentially a statement, a clarification of pathways to the Seal of Biliteracy. I'm seeing questions bubble up in the question box already. Okay, let's get to the implementation part, and we most certainly will. And for those who have to hop off the webinar a little bit early, we will of course record this entire thing and send it to everybody who has attended. But to cover what is being released this fall, of course, you will see these 7 national organizations, including ACTFL, have come together. And I will note that these were the organizations who were originally responsible for coming up with the guidance for the implementation of the Seal of Biliteracy. What they will be releasing this fall is essentially a clarification of that guidance, showing exactly what Mary Jo and I are discussing today. What steps can I take if I am at a school, if I am at a district, if I am wherever within our country in order to implement the Seal of Biliteracy. So you will be seeing that released very shortly. And again, we're especially looking really in depth at how any institution, as you see down there in bold, can present the evidence that a student has reached the level of proficiency required to earn the Seal of Biliteracy, just as Mary Jo has done at Providence Day. Without further ado, I will go ahead and introduce our surprise guest speaker, who is Leah Greiner Kennedy. She's coming to us from Stonington Public Schools up in Connecticut, where it's not quite as hot as it is down in Charlotte. Last I checked weather.com. But anyway, what she will be doing is she will be sharing her expertise, as she has been implementing the Seal of Biliteracy for quite a while now up there in Stonington Public Schools. And she will be walking you through from the public school side exactly how her journey has looked, and then we will hop over to Mary Jo so that she can give an in-depth analysis of exactly what she has done and how she has made it work at her independent school. Leah, take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andrew. It's exciting to be here with you and Mary Jo, and I can't echo my appreciation enough for you impressing upon everybody how powerful this tool is to promote the value of being multilingual. So thank you for letting me join you today. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the work that I'm doing. As the president of CT Colt, I'm working both with my own public district, which is Stonington Public Schools. It was the pilot district for the state of Connecticut, but I'm also working with independent and private schools around our state to help them go through the process of implementing. So to those of you asking questions about logistics and information that you can use, feel free to reach out to me after this for additional resources, or go to our website, which is ctcult.org, because we have posted lots of things there that I've used within my own public school that will work well for both public, for private and independent as well. I wanted to talk a little bit about the motivation. I think that one of the things that you will realize is that as you start getting more of the materials and understanding how you will be able to demonstrate student success and gains in proficiency, you'll find that it is hugely motivating to the students. So one of the first things that we did was to engage the student population in explaining to the board, to all the stakeholders, and to the Commissioner of Education why they needed the Seal of Biliteracy. So it was the Stonington Public School students who wrote to the Commissioner, who wrote letters for testifying in order to push this through. And then they also went further by going ahead and making PSAs and informational videos about what the seal will bring them in terms of their career, their health benefits, and cognitive benefits moving forward. So I really think that it's important to engage the students in that way to be able to get buy-in, and it is really important to engage the teachers and the faculty within your district. Within each of your states, the first thing that I would do is be looking towards your state guidelines. I am serving on that committee that is revising the National Seal of Biliteracy guidelines, and we're working really hard to understand the needs of all 50 states. Within each of the states, there's a plethora of resources that you could be tapping, as well as tapping your state language organizations. So there is a lot of material that's being shared, and we're trying to facilitate more of this, so that we can have reciprocity for the Seal of Biliteracy between the different states, but also to share these materials. So when we were going ahead and moving forward with our pilot for Stonington Public Schools for the state of Connecticut, the first thing that we did was to reach out to Virginia, who had already been there, and Ohio and Illinois, and we were able to leverage so much of their work in order to get the resources that we needed. once you're able to share those resources with the board and some of the other stakeholders within your public or private institution, it is important to start with a pilot. It is a bit daunting when you're first taking this on, but I can assure you that it will take one spring session to go through it and be able to easily be able to explain what the tasks are like and have the students and the teachers understand how the test is going to allow students to produce language in authentic, real world performance tasks that will allow them to demonstrate their proficiency level. I think that the next question that I was going to address was also about how to lean on other districts for technology and other resources. Many states have put together FAQs, and I find that as a teacher sitting there in the room, whether it's a lab or just a series of laptops that you have brought in on a cart, working through some of those technological issues can be challenging the first time through. So again, that's another reason to start with a pilot. We started with a pilot 3 years ago, and we had a handful of students. We moved up to 22% of the graduating class last year, and I'm happy to say that right now we're coming at almost 43% of all seniors will walk across the stage on June 21st with the Seal of Biliteracy. And this is a huge issue that is important to the students because it's on all of their transcripts, and it's important to the colleges as they go ahead and take their scores with the granular explanation of each of the 4 different tests and help use that for placement as they move on to colleges. So, so I think that many of us have heard Greg Roberts speak of the need to cure monolingualism. And I think that the Seal of Biliteracy is definitely going to be something that will really energize programs around our country and also encourage students to stick with it for the extra year or 2 needed in order to hit that intermediate mid or intermediate high, depending on the state in which you are working. But I do encourage you to reach out and form a group within your community that is leveraging your state guidelines. The last thing that I'm going to mention before turning it back over to Mary Jo is that I'm finding that working with districts, the important thing that comes out of this testing is the need to start looking at our programs, our curriculum, and our methodology to make sure that it is in alignment with teaching for proficiency, because we want to make sure that all of the tasks that we're asking students to do in the classroom are leading towards real world authentic use of language. And whether we are looking at the EL side of this or the world language side of this testing, the goal is that the assessments are going to be moving towards real world application of the language. So if I could be of any help from the Connecticut side, I think that there are lots of resources on our website, and I'd be happy to share more if people would like to use them.
Great, thank you so much, Leah. And you will see Leah's email address right there on the screen. You will also see a link to the Connecticut Seal of Biliteracy information brochure, which is full of wonderful information as to, first steps of implementation. And as Leah mentioned, her organization, just like any state's organization, or excuse me, world language organization, is more than happy to help guide a school, a district, or a state in the right direction as far as the Seal of Biliteracy goes. Next up, we have somebody with whom we have already become familiar, but of course here she is, Mary Jo Adams, who is going to show a very detailed version of how the Seal of Biliteracy is implemented at a private and or independent school.
And I hope that those of you listen to Leah were taking copious notes, and if not, this webinar is being recorded because she gives really great guidance and direction, especially if you're part of a program that is just transitioning to proficiency or standards based. So Providence Day School, we moved to a proficiency-based program about 7 years ago. And so we have been Apple testing for the past 6 or 7 years. So we have been teaching and curriculum writing with our curriculum being driven by the ACTFL standards. So when a couple of years ago, I was starting to look into, as chair, the Seal of Biliteracy and what it would take to award, and speaking with my administrators to bring on this designation. I did have an administration that is very committed to world language at our school and had already committed to the importance of outside testing to inform our curriculum. And let's call a spade, or in French you say a cat. That means that commitment meant that outside testing is funded by our administration. So for this may have been our 7th year, testing our level 1 and 3 students, we already are getting feedback of where they are on the proficiency spectrum. So Leah's suggestion of looking and maybe piloting with outside testing, I do think is an excellent suggestion. So it just took a while for our administration just to hear, well, what is the Seal of Biliteracy? What is the advantage when we already offer AP to have another designation? Is this another just certification? Is it something that everyone's going to get? They just needed to understand within our school the advantage of the Seal of Biliteracy. And I do really feel that the two main advantages, one is that heritage speakers, students that have acquired a second language in non-traditional settings, as well as our own students that may choose not to take AP, even though we do accept AP as one of the benchmarks to get the seal, allows a broader group of students to demonstrate proficiency in less traditional ways. And embracing that ability was important and very recognized. I did look at our state guidelines. I think that because every state has different guidelines, I wanted to make sure that as an independent school that we were aligning ourselves. In North Carolina, we have what's called as the Global Language Endorsement, which is North Carolina Seal of Biliteracy. The benchmark for that is intermediate low. So based on our program and the number of years that students have the ability to be in a world language and their commitment, I also got together with world language chairs at the other independent schools in my area. I felt that perhaps together as a cohort, we could discuss the Seal of Biliteracy and encourage all of our schools to have this and recognize the same level, and perhaps even share in the design of the Seal of Biliteracy, and other independent schools in Charlotte have followed along. And so the decision was to make the benchmark intermediate high. I think some of the nuts and bolts from our administration was just sustainability. It does mean that somebody does have to, at an independent school, order the test, run the test, look at the uh, I want to say the results, blah blah. Look at the results and then put this whole presentation of the seal, communicate to parents, communicate to students what the seal is. So in some independent schools, there's someone that's designated to do that. I do that at my school, but I do have someone designated in each of the languages when the teachers, give the assessment and we're looking at the results. I think the Seal of Biliteracy does more for us than just recognize the students that do perform. It informs our world language program. So students in level 6 take the Seal of Biliteracy test. To reach intermediate high, we do know that it takes 6 to 8 years of purposeful instruction. And I would say about 50% in each language of our students after year 6 reach that designation. Another point that we had to consider was at what age, when do we want to award the seal? With world language requirements being different from school to school, we believe that students need to be motivated and required to continue their language. So if we do have, for example, a heritage speaker that perhaps could reach the benchmark their sophomore year, they are required to continue through their junior year. In other words, our Seal of Biliteracy is awarded at the end of junior year or at the end of senior year, depending on when these students were enrolled in the level that we are doing this testing. I think the Seal of Biliteracy is a milestone, but at the same time, we don't want to lose the thread of the conversation that it is not the destination, right, on the path to proficiency. The goal for our students is to continue on and reach the highest level of, cultural and linguistic proficiency as they can. But these stops along the way that give them feedback, not only the feedback that they get from our teachers in the classrooms, but from outside testing in levels 1 and 3, and then in level 6 for the seal, are very, very motivating for them. For us to know whether we are reaching our benchmarks and making sure that we are providing the instruction. There's an adage in the business world, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And that's why I think the power of this outside testing leading to the Seal of Biliteracy is such a legitimate certification. We're excited for our school. I mean, we do celebrate those students that receive, and full disclosure, this was the first year that we've awarded the seal. We will have in the world language outside in the hallways, sort of 6-foot acrylic plaques that are going up on the wall. We recognize them at our world language induction ceremony, but we will also recognize them with their names on this. And I do think that students really are motivated to work toward that. The slide that's up right now, just like every state, we, Providence Day School, just designed our Seal of Biliteracy along with a certificate recognizing the seal. What I think is really nice is that this certificate looks very, very much like our diploma, and therefore for our student body weights the Seal of Biliteracy as very, very important and a very special designation for our upper school students. I spoke a little bit about our seal as far as the North Carolina Global Languages endorsement. I have to say we have an incredible Department of Public Instruction. The supervisors and the world language curriculum coordinators have been very, very helpful to us in guiding us, even though we've determined a different benchmark than our state has. But it didn't matter that the state doesn't award the seal. The seal is awarded by Providence Day School, but Providence Day School in awarding the seal means the headmaster, the board of trustees, the criteria and the integrity of the Seal of Biliteracy is met by our criteria. The next slide, we talk a little bit about what it's done. I have now students that are coming to me, Senora Adams, is there any way I could take the Seal of Biliteracy test? I know that I've done really well in my studies, and I'm not at year 6 either, but my teachers really encouraged me, to go and try to see that if I could qualify. That's exciting to hear that our students are excited and want to gain this designation, and they want to demonstrate their language abilities and fully understanding what intermediate high reading, writing, listening, and language means to them. It's been very, very motivating for our students that start a language in middle school. They actually started in lower school, but continue on that path to understand that reaching a high level of proficiency takes a long time. I think that now it is formulaic. We measure proficiency by purposeful instructional time in equals proficiency out in general terms. So I think that students already know if that's what they want. They want to be intermediate high. They want to be the level, even advanced low, of what we require teachers to be. That's very, very motivating for a high schooler to understand that they could graduate at a level that the state requires world language teachers to be at. We're really hoping to see an increase of heritage speakers, knowing that the Apple test is offered in, Andrew will chime in, how many different languages?
Currently 13.
So that languages that aren't offered at Providence Day School, we can honor these heritage languages with the Seal of Biliteracy. And it's just increased, I say, stakeholder community. Parents are asking about it, administrators are asking about it, because there's just a buzz of this term, Seal of Biliteracy. And I think that people can get a hold of it more than the AP test, which still seems very teach to the test, College Board. By no means do I want to disregard the importance of AP and where it falls in a curriculum, but as schools are perhaps unable, due to uh, teachers that they have, faculty, or just certainly amount of students that can reach, AP, some AP languages aren't offered at school. Now we have the Seal of Biliteracy. And again, the last bullet point is how it began 6 years ago, and to chime in with what Leah was talking about. The Seal of Biliteracy begins with the path to proficiency, and that's step 1. Maybe Andrew will move on to talk a little bit about more specifically the Apple.
I will, yes. So Mary Jo mentioned that, the AP exam, the IB exam, those are a couple of ways in which a student can earn the Seal of Biliteracy. Each state, each district has their own list of qualifying assessments that can earn students the Seal of Biliteracy. So again, I'm seeing a couple of questions pop up here in the on the question panel about what if my student has taken this exam or this exam? What I would advise that you do is, once again, go to sealofbiliteracy.org and check. You can, that map that we showed, you can click on each of those states and you can see the approved assessments for which students can earn the Seal of Biliteracy. I will say that across all 37 states in which the Seal of Biliteracy has been approved, the Apple is accepted as a way to qualify students for the Seal of Biliteracy. This is an ACTFL developed assessment. It is hand rated by ACTFL certified raters. Just a quick overview, as you see on the screen. Mary Jo asked, in how many languages is it currently available? It's currently available in 13. And there is also the Alira that ACTFL provides for Latin. So students are earning themselves a Seal of Biliteracy in Latin as well through ACTFL assessments. One main question, and again, we can kind of, you could please feel free to email me for further details or a demo on this particular assessment. But one question I get a lot is, how in the world can you assess the productive skills? We can see the receptive skills, the reading and listening. How does an assessment like the Apple take a look at productive skills? Well, it is an online assessment in which students, for their speaking skills, they're actually exposed to what is essentially a simulated live chat feature, where they have their headphones, they have a full-on conversation. It's 18 prompts back and forth, in which students are able to show their communicative, their interpersonal abilities. Entire experience is recorded, and then again, sent to actual certified raters for hand rating. What comes back to those students is going to be, oh, did I lose that slide? Where'd that slide go? Oh, lost it somehow. But what comes back to those students is a full-on report that Leah mentioned. So it will separate out all 4 skills. It shows the students' speaking abilities are at not as high, the students' listening abilities are at intermediate mid, so on and so forth. This is a wonderful tool to use not only for this, Seal of Biliteracy testing, whether the students are juniors or seniors, but what both Leah and Mary Jo have mentioned, and that is, we can begin to collect data at a very young age as students make their way up that continuum towards proficiency. In addition to those 13 languages plus Latin that are offered for Actuals Apple, we are releasing new this fall in 2019, an OPI and WPT bundle that is K through 12 focused. You'll see on the right-hand side of your screen, once again, we get a lot of questions about, I have a group of students, they all speak Turkish. What in the world can I do for them as far as the Seal of Biliteracy goes? Well, starting this fall, we will have this extensive list of less commonly taught languages in which we will be offering, again, this K through 12 focused assessment. As we've discussed, the Seal of Biliteracy, we're looking at K through 12, of course. So what is the next step? Next step, we pass through middle school, we pass through high school, and then we're looking at college. There are already several colleges and universities that are using assessments like the Apple, that are using the Seal of Biliteracy as a way to not only place students, but also award credit. And that is, the Seal of Biliteracy is really only where the actual assessment journey begins. As we can see, it goes throughout college and then looking towards our career. We have already talked about world readiness and students applying for jobs in which a certain degree of multiliteracy is required. Well, actual assessments and of course this actual proficiency certificate is a perfect way to actually have tangible evidence of an individual's proficiency. What we will do now is we will go ahead and open up the lines for questions. If you have questions that you would like to have addressed, please go ahead and type them into the question box on the side of your screen, and either I or Mary Jo or Leah will go ahead and address those quickly. I'm going to go ahead and pause for a quick minute to read through those questions, and then we will begin to address them. Maybe even less than a minute. Leah has volunteered her expertise to go ahead and talk about the university outreach. Leah?
Great. I saw some questions in the chat bar earlier, and I just thought I'd recognize some of those as Mary Jo was talking. The stories are great, and I can't echo what Mary Jo said enough about the excitement that this testing is bringing about. So definitely involve the students in this, because it is really a source of getting them excited about continuing on for another year. It's also that thought, well, I'm almost there. I'm so close to intermediate mid. If I keep going for one more year, I could hit that. And there are students that people would swear we're not going to continue that actually have decided to continue their studies because of this. So certainly I want to reiterate Mary Jo's point on that one. With regards to the universities, what we're doing in Connecticut is reaching out to each of the state universities as well as the private universities and ask them, what does it mean to them when a student comes in with external testing, whether it's AP, whether it's STAMP, whether it's Apple, whatever the external testing is, what will they do with it in order to recognize? So at this point right now, we have put together negotiations with some of the universities that are giving up to 9 credits upon arrival with a documentation, like Andrew had mentioned, showing their scores in each of the 4 test areas, hitting the intermediate, mid, or higher. And so that is allowing them to then be able to place out of these lower level classes. The other thing that is helpful, people mentioned what other list of universities is available. There is a list that has been circulated. I'm not sure if maybe we could post that for everybody with all of the universities nationwide that do recognize the Seal of Biliteracy. But it is helpful for you to reach out to some of the schools that are the most common for your students to apply to. And sometimes it's really a question of having that conversation. For me, it was a conversation with the department chair at Villanova to say, this is what the student took. They said, well, we actually would prefer another test. So the student went from Apple testing, then on to OPIC testing, and with intermediate high at both levels, they literally changed the course placement for the student. So some of it is this ongoing advocacy effort that we as the K-12 sector have to keep reaching out from our public, private, and independent schools to inform the universities of what we're delivering to them. I have helped to organize some panels at different regional conferences, including the NECFL conference, to get that K-16 group to sit together to say, what does this mean? Because it really does beg for a change in curriculum. As Mary Jo talked about, she's been teaching towards proficiency for 7 years. So you continue to see this growth and you continue to see higher gains. So now what does that mean to the universities that she is going to deliver these students to at the end of 12th grade? So I think facilitating those conversations at each state goes a long way towards helping them to recognize why they should be giving credit. As for the national level, we are talking with many states trying to get inter-district, interstate recognition of the Seal of Biliteracy. And with that interstate will also beg the question, how will states recognize the seal being awarded in another state for the university level?
Great. Thank you, Leah. Mary Jo, do you have any further comments on that, or shall we move to the next question?
No, that's great.
Okay. Looks like the next question is going to be about the apple. So the question is, should Form A or Form B be used for the apple when testing for Seal of Biliteracy? Once again, we highly recommend that you check each state's requirements. Or if you are, a teacher at Providence Day, for example, you check the school's requirements. Which level of proficiency is required for your particular Seal of Biliteracy. That is what we base our decision on when choosing between Form A and Form B of the apple. Form A, the floor goes all the way down to novice low, and then Form B, the ceiling goes all the way up to advanced low. So most of the time, we do recommend Form B for Seal of Biliteracy because it does allow students to reach those higher levels of proficiency. Form A is typically used for students in their first, second, maybe third year of language learning. Another question, can the Seal of Biliteracy be used for immersion students? Mary Jo, Leah, do you have any experience issuing Seals of Biliteracy to immersion students?
Why, again, why not? That's what the Seal of Biliteracy is all about. I do think that just to look at the immersion program and what that benchmark is, and that is a decision if that at what age will one, it's for high school students. So I think absolutely.
Well, the other thing, if I could jump in, Mary Jo, is to show progress along that pathway towards proficiency. So there are a lot of districts, whether it's immersion or they have an extensive K-12 program. I know that in the case of Glastonbury Public Schools, which is a wonderful district in Connecticut, they just finished testing 2,000 students district-wide, and they were able to get benchmark data for 5th, 6th, 8th, and 10th, and then end with the OPI and the OPIC, I'm sorry, and the WPT. So I think one of the goals for many districts is to expand that that testing so that we can show those gains. For my students, we do a lot of things where they do self-assessment with the Apple scoring guides, and students rate their own performances in each of the modes. And they go ahead and say, I think I'm at about an I2 now using that Apple scoring rubric. And Andrew, teachers love those scoring rubrics. So if you want to send those as attachments, I would say that is one of the most photocopied tools that I have used with teachers, and people use it extensively because the students can then reflect on what level am I at, and then on the right column it shows what is the strategy to move up to the next level. So I think that is a great way for the students to keep buying in, but seeing that benchmark data and showing that growth each year, I think is a huge part of getting them to be committed to this journey.
Love to hear you say that, Leah, because that is my personal favorite resource of all the Apple resources that we offer for both teachers and students. Those score descriptions are definitely number one on my list. They are printable. They can be shared with teachers. We have one question that is coming up that is actually about, how can teachers learn more about a test like the Apple in order to inform their teaching and the learning that happens in the classroom. So there are resources like that. There are also Apple demos available, and these demos are available on the LTI site. They're also available on applecentral.com. And what we can do there is we can take a look at several different languages. We can take a look at all 4 sections for ourselves to see exactly, what is this simulated live chat? How can I prepare my students? Well, let's show up on Monday and have them go ahead and do a couple of sample prompts and see how they perform. Leah's activity, where students are essentially rating their own speaking samples and or writing samples on the actual proficiency scale, that is also a wonderful idea. We will move on to the next question. Do you have an example timeline for the initiation of this process? We have been using Apple for 6 years and are a proficiency-based program. We have buy-in and support from admin, parents, students, and board. We are ready to get started.
Well, that's an easy question. Award your first Seal of Biliteracy this upcoming year, 2020.
Yeah.
So there is this, I know this question because, again, if you hear, sort of the 3 years, it's sort of talk, you're ready, you've got buy-in, ready, set, go. And it's really exciting. Just jump in, and this summer just know that, okay, we're going to be talking, we're going to let the students know that, in the spring we'll do this testing. I mean, you may decide when you're going to do the testing, because I do think that you want to be able to get the results so you can have that award ceremony, depending when you might already have a National Honor Society. You want the results so they can be recognized on a diploma at graduation. The reason why we chose junior year is it's really level 6, but we encourage juniors, if we think that they can actually hit the benchmarks to take it, is they want to be able to, as they're writing their college applications, have that information to talk about that designation on college applications. Yes, you're ready to get started? Yes, right away.
So I would suggest that you roll it out for a back to school night, share with the parents, get all that information out to the parents so they know exactly what you're doing. And the other thing that I think would help is we had, as a department, we took the Apple test and pretended that we were our students. And we do it also in junior year in order to make sure that we've got everything into the transcripts before college application processes start. But for us, it was fun to get together, and we were trying to aim for writing and speaking like our students and get a sense of what was the feedback, what was that experience like, and I thought that was very helpful. And then in our state, you must wait at least 2 months in order to take a makeup section of the test. So every state is a little bit different. You'll need to look at your guidelines for that, but it is important that you're aware of the fact that the new test comes out in December, and we don't want to have students taking the same test, making up. So if you wait till it's too late in the year, there's no makeup time. So we typically shoot for around February or March of junior year, and then it takes a good amount of time to work with your guidance department to get everything into your student information system, calling out a course code for each one of the languages. And so all of that takes a little bit of time, especially if you're in one of the 25 states like I am that does not have an Amory Gunter at the helm, or one of the other state coordinators like North Carolina does, because you will have to manage some of this data and work on your own, which is just logistical data, but it does take a little bit of time to coordinate.
Also, we put in our course outline and course description. So again, whether for public relations, informing parents, students, the Seal of Biliteracy is part of the world language course description, what it takes to be awarded the seal. So it now is in our public materials that we are parent materials. Again, another way of just advocating and letting parents know so they can be excited about this for their child.
Great point.
Great. Okay, we have a state-specific question. How do I find out if there are any schools? How do I find out if there are any schools near me in New York that are already offering this? This is a very new topic for me. As head of the World Language Department, I am very interested. What would the two of you advise if you are in the state of New York and you're just setting out to learn and implement the Seal of Biliteracy?
If you're
New York is,
sorry. If you're at an independent school, I would ask the other larger independent schools if you're aware of schools in your area that have strong world language programs. So right away, I would reach out to them and ask them. I think Leah might be able to guide you better if you're in a public school or your district.
So I am working with a couple independent schools in New York that are looking to the Seal of Biliteracy for next year, and they are doing something similar to what Mary Jo is explaining of creating their own school-wide seal. However, if you're looking at public institutions, there is a portfolio component as well for the New York public schools, and you could reach out to people at the state level, as there are lots of resources already available for New York. Apple, Stamp, AP, all of those are viable ways to prove the external proficiency level needed. So for sure you could go to their statewide website and get started with that. But also NYSFL has a plethora of resources, and the Next Full Conference has a lot of resources as well, which takes place in mid-February. So you could reach out to people at that organization as well.
On the sealofbiliteracy.org website, I think if you're planning on offering the seal and looking, it is interesting to see the criteria of the different states because not all of them the same. Some states have a 2-tier criteria. I think Minnesota has a 4-tier criteria, sort of. Don't quote me whether it's bronze, silver, gold, but something like that, that depending on the level of proficiency demonstrated, there is a corresponding additional sort of note bene on what that seal is. And Illinois, Kansas, Wisconsin might be two-tiered. But for us, just we discussed that, but just the logistics and again, sustainability, we really felt that one seal, one criteria, that's how we were going to award our students, and that it wasn't something that was particularly easy to get. It is a journey. It is a multi-year commitment to earn the seal of biliteracy.
One of the things that I really like that Delaware does is they do have a tiered system, but they actually write on the back of the seal a description in layman's terms of what it means. If you arrive at intermediate, mid, intermediate, high, not advanced, low, they actually have it so that you can go to colleges that don't know as much about this, or employers, and be able to show them, I have reached this level and this is what it allows me to do. So I do like that wording. And Gregory Fulkerson, who is at the State Department for Delaware, is more than happy to share resources with the language community.
We have a follow-up question on the K through 16 inquiry. So thank you so much for the university answer. My area is working on putting together a committee K through 16 to encourage teaching towards proficiency. How would you suggest starting that conversation towards proficiency and the credit for the seal that would/could be awarded?
Do you want me to take that one, or Mary Jo?
Start. I have thoughts, but why don't you go ahead? Yeah.
Okay. So we've been using the conferences as a way to start these conversations. I find that that's a good way to get people together who are already committed to doing something at the statewide level. So we have had some luck with that. I think that it is going to take face-to-face meetings with the leaders of the state organizations, with leaders within the within the K to 16 community. If you can find people that represent different groups, we're always looking for representatives for NEL to make sure that we've got the early language component. Then we're looking for people that have traditional K to 6 programs versus the dual immersion programs. So getting a point person that represents the different voices, I think, is a really important part of this. And just sustaining that relationships. We've been doing so much via Zoom, where we just say, let's just do 30 minutes. Let's tell you what we're doing with the testing. What does it look like? Because many of these colleges are still doing the traditional grammar-based assessment for the placement of the students in the courses. And so our students come after doing this proficiency-based approach, and then are given a past subjunctive test, and there's a disconnect there. So we need to be having those conversations with them to say, well, would you consider doing any of these more proficiency-based assessments in order to get to a better sense of the skills that the students are bringing to them? So I do think that just like Mary Jo was talking about making this shift over a 7-year period, I think that these conversations within the K to 16 pipeline are relationships that have to be fostered and sustained in order to help us to all start seeing the value of authentic language use, functional language use for real world purposes.
And I love the suggestion that the meeting place be your state language conference if you're in a state that provides a language conference. I think that finding partnerships of like-minded educators between the different divisions that are willing to partner, in other words, a lower school language program that feeds into a specific middle school where the teachers and administrators are willing to work together to form a purposeful partnership. So you have success stories of how that can work. A philosophical aligning of ideas and methodology is certainly important, but I think the really difficult part then is making it work in practice and finding teachers and schools that are willing to purposefully make that partnership work for the benefit of the students would be really, really strong, sort of more grassroots.
Okay, we have a couple of shorter questions. First, can the Seal of Biliteracy be issued at the middle school level? Have either of you seen Seals of Biliteracy issued at the middle school level?
Right now, I don't know of any that are doing it at the middle school level. There are lots of districts that are doing pathway ceremonies at the middle school level. It's a great way to start getting the kids excited about their heritage language and sharing their excitement with others about that. It's a great way to show the gains that have already been made through the elementary or middle school program. But there is definitely a push to get students to continue this journey. As Mary Jo shared earlier, it's not just about hitting intermediate mid and saying, okay, great, got that, let's move on. The goal is to get them to keep moving up to the advanced levels. We don't want students to exit the programs too early, hoping that they're going to hit these higher levels and be able to take on some more rigorous content and real world applications. So I'm not currently aware of that, but in our state, we did decide that it is 10th grade or higher that you can do it. And most states are similar with regards to national guidelines.
Great. Next question, is there a fee for the certificate? I will go ahead and take that one. No, there's not a fee for the Seal of Biliteracy certificate, nor the seal that goes on the diploma of the student, nor is there a fee for the actual proficiency certificate that now comes along with that score report that Leah mentioned. So students not only receive that full-on score report that shows, gives a score description for exactly where they came in on the proficiency scale across all four sections of the test, but also an actual proficiency certificate that has a verification element to it that students can, of course, carry along with them after graduation. Is there a suggested template for the seal? So if we are looking to, if I am a school and I'm looking to create my own seal, Mary Jo, as you did at Providence Day, did you use a template? How did you get started with the logistics of that?
So, there are some seals that may have been even created by students. I think Illinois is too by lit to quit. So I don't think that there's any sort of model seal that you have to have. On one of the slides early in our presentation, you can see how many different seals they are and what if the seal reflects an insignia from the state. I mean, ours is pretty simple and straightforward, and because it reflects our school and our logo, we wanted to keep it really clean and simple. So it's just that.
Can I jump in here with this one as well? For Connecticut, we just went through Arthur Cho, who runs sealofbiliteracy.org, and asked him, because we do not have a state supervisor. So it is me and my colleagues at CT Colt who actually made the physical seal, designed the physical seal, and they actually have to pay $1 per student for it because we're buying them and sending them out. So everything for the testing is free, but for the physical seal, we're actually paying for the template to be designed. We did use a Connecticut insignia in order to have it go through the state, but everything comes from us as a state language organization. So when we created it, we really made sure that we looked at multiple diplomas from around the state. That is going to be very important, because if you're going to put something on a very small piece of real estate, principals and superintendents were very concerned about the dimensions. So I encourage you to look at a variety of diplomas if you're doing one for your state. And we matched it with the National Honor Society. So it's a golden seal that could be around the title and was not going to take up too much real estate. So definitely check in with other people within your state.
And you can use the Seal of Biliteracy logo from sealofbiliteracy.org.
Yep. And Arthur will send you those for free. So if you reach out to Arthur, he has a certain number of them that he has that are free every year. So if you're looking to, as a new person to implement, Arthur Cho, I'm sure that his name rings a bell with many of you. You can reach out to him via sealofbiliteracy.org. And he has everything from medals and all kinds of things that could be helpful to you.
Great. We have one small correction, and then we will unfortunately have to end this party, as much as I would like for it to go on for hours and hours. What the correction had to do with the Apple, actually. So looking at exactly when the content is refreshed for the Apple every single year. Actual refreshes Apple content in March of every single year as opposed to December. I would like to thank you all very much, attendees, for taking time out of your busy schedules. And as Mary Jo mentioned, especially at the end of the year where we're, our hair is on fire grading tests, getting ready for those exciting summer plans. I know that all too well. But thank you very, very much for attending today. We hope that we were able to answer at least some of your questions. If you have further questions, I will go ahead and put my contact information up as well as Mary Jo's. I showed Leah's a bit earlier and I can hear her typing right now. I have a funny feeling that's going to be her email address popping up in the chat box. But if you have any further questions about the Seal of Biliteracy, about the assessments that can be used, especially the actual assessments that can be used in order to earn your students that seal, please don't hesitate to reach out to us directly. If we don't have the answer ourselves, we will be more than happy to put you in contact with all of the wonderful resources. And I speak much less for myself than I do for Mary Jo and Leah. They have more resources than I have, I don't know, pennies in my pocket. But anyway, have a great day. Thank you for attending. And we hope to see you very soon on our next webinar as part of the LTI webinar series.